Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Melco's application team doing our design talk. See what questions you might have, try to get them answered for you. I'm going to start off with the questions that were sent in ahead of time. If you have questions while we're live, both on Facebook and YouTube, type them in the chats. Don't send them privately. I don't tend to see those until long afterwards. But yeah, type them in directly in the chat. I've got another monitor set up here, and that's where I kind of keep track of what's going on as questions come in. So let me make sure, looks like my sound's on. Let me make sure both platforms are actually up. It looks like they are, so lovely. I'm going to close that up so we don't get echoes. Okay, so I'm going to start off on questions that were sent in ahead of time. So there was one, I watched some videos of live recordings regarding partitions, trying to figure out what pattern this expanded file used. I'm trying to recreate the look, but I can't figure it out. Can you help? All right, so let me go open up that partition file that was sent, and we will go from there. So file, open, Dropbox. Where's Dropbox? There you are. Melco. All right, so this is what was sent, and it was, how can we create this? So this is kind of like the auto split. Having done that, this is pretty much the same look. So what is that? All right, so what I did was I created a column where I just click, 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 click. Okay, so that gave me, cancel. All right, so that gave me this, but how do I get this look to it? So that happens to be a partition of 6 with 501, 501. So if I come over here and I say, okay, let's make this a partition of 6, 501, 501, angle of 90, so it's 90 degrees from the edge, poof, you got right there. And then you can play with that stitch length and see if it changes any of the look, but that gives you that kind of split column look where it gives you almost two satins with kind of this mixed fill down the middle, kind of splitting it. This is nice rather than doing a hard split. When you do a hard split where it's just a straight line, you tend to see not only a hard line but the fabric sticking through, right? So this kind of blended look that you get here is done just through partitions. You can also do the same look. So I did that by doing a 6, 501, and 90. You can do the same thing by doing common auto split. So right there, if I just say common auto split as the preset, it'll automatically do it for you. Okay, so that's built into V11 to give you that specific look. So if you don't remember what the settings are, just try the common auto split and go from there. Okay, so that's how you create that. Does DesignShop 12 have a draw feature? I've got a touch screen. It'd be awesome if I could use the pen and trace the outlines. Is it possible? Yes, but it depends on how the pen that comes with the computer or that you're using with your computer is mapped. And this is within Windows drivers things, so way lower than I can talk about. But if the pen behaves like a mouse, then you can use it. If it behaves as something else using its own custom drivers, it's not going to respond how you expect. So to set up the draw mode, it's pretty straightforward. Within DesignShop, like if I go to Digitize, you've got the Bezier method here. If I then go to this one, Freeform Digitizing mode, that allows me to just draw. So if you've got a pen that behaves like a mouse, I can now just drag it around on the computer and draw, right? So I could draw whatever I want. Oh, that's good. All right, delete that. Let's go to a fill, something that will let me just keep drawing, right? So I can draw whatever shapes I want, and it will create them. Then I can add my holes, whatever. Okay, got a really ugly paint palette going there. All right, so yes, you can draw, but it is highly dependent on how your computer and the pen that it has is mapped, and there's really no way to change it. Some of them work, some of them don't. It just depends on how the programmer of that device created the drivers. If they create it to behave like a mouse, then you're good to go. If they made their own whatever, then it doesn't tend to respond in the software. That's just been what I've found. So yeah, grab it, try it. Right here is the draw mode, freeform digitizing. Cool. All right, how do you offset an object if you don't have it in your program? Okay, so offset is a level dependent feature. If you don't have it, then it's a matter of just redrawing it, right? So circles are easy, offsets are all concentric. So if I copy Control C, Control V, and I drag, then that allows me, that allows me to be able to get an offset from it. If you draw something that's non-concentric, like a rectangle, all right, and I copy and paste that, and now I drag it, I've just holding Control, undo, delete that. So what I did is I held Shift Alt, and that's the same thing I did on that circle. Shift Alt, Shift scale keeps everything uniform. Alt makes it goes from the center. So I can scale it down, but you'll notice I get an uneven thing here and here. So I then would have to do an Alt and just drag this around. So it's all manual. So if you don't have the offset option, which is objects, offset, outline, it is level dependent. So you can do, -30, +20, whatever it is. So that's how you would get it to be uniform all the way around. Then you'd have to do it manually. So do X, then Y. I would just copy and paste and move things around. A question was typed in, can you use the Wacom tablet? And you have one, haven't tried it. I had one that worked and I have one that didn't work. So I think it depends on the programming. I have no idea why one worked and one the others. All I'd say is try it. I tried it for a while for entertainment value. I can work just as quick with the mouse. So for me, I just abandoned ship because it was annoying having to go back to doing computer work with my mouse and computer and then my tablet. So since I can digitize with a mouse, I didn't see the point. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to try it anyway, right? How do I make a pattern for quilts? There's a lot of moving, but I thought I would make my own pattern. Yeah, so I think I've showed this quite a few times. Let's see if I go, where did I put it? There we go. Wake up. There it is, horse. This is a quilting pattern I created. Okay. All right, so right here, creating a quilting pattern, first you've got to decide what pattern it is you're going to repeat and how you want it to repeat, right? So I do them as decoratives, where your start point and your stop point have to be on the same horizontal line, okay? So I literally just traced out whatever shape I wanted. I use this as a walk normal. It could be a bean stitch if you'd prefer, or a chain stitch, whatever you want, right? So you can do combos. You can actually do more than just a walk. So you could have a walk, some satins, and some other stuff. But you would create your design, right? Paying attention to where you want it to start and stop, and make sure it makes sense when it repeats. So if I copy and paste this over, does that make sense? That's how I wanted it to look, so that's why I created it this way. Right? So once you draw it out with whatever you want, then right click, save custom shape, tell it to be a decorative. I always test under the thing test and I overwrite it. That way I'm not clogging up my library with a whole bunch of stuff that I don't like, right? So then I can come over here and go, all right, I want that to be a decorative of pattern test, where test. And I can draw my things, see if that's what I like, yes or no, right? Now, when you're doing these, You can create them several ways. Like let's say you want to quilt individual blocks at one time. You can actually choose to do it as a square, right? So maybe I'm going to do this as a 12-inch square. 12, I guess I probably shouldn't have had that fill. All right, let me convert this to a vector. Actually, let's convert it first and then I'll make it bigger. So I'm going to change that to decorative. And then I'm going to change this to test. All right, and I'll fix it in a minute. But first, let's say I wanted this to be 12 by 12. Right, and then I can center it. And now I can go, all right, is this what I want? No, I don't like it overlapping like that. So how do I fix that? Well, I can play with these and move things around and, you know, until I get it to nest how I want. Right, so I can do that. I can also do it by number and play with that under properties and mess with these things, the spacing and vertical spacing. It does the same thing as dragging these things around, okay? And that would create it as a little pattern where it'll sew it out for you. All right. If you're going to do it as a straight line, right, where you're going to quilt as much as you can in a hoop, then you're going to rehoop it and go. That's a matter of paying attention to your chalking out a line and then setting up the alignment so that you can use laser alignment. And how I would do that is like this. So I would put it where my start point is right on the origin. Okay, so right on where the red hairs cross. And my end point's going to be over there, of course. But that's going to be the next start point, right? And then I would make sure that this fits in whatever hoop I want. This is 13 inches. That'll fit in that hoop. But maybe I don't want it 2 inches tall. Maybe I want it 6 inches tall. Oh, I guess it helps if I put on num lock, huh? All right, let's undo that. Go into properties. And let's make the height 300. And width 300. There. All right, so now it's going to be 4.5 inches. All right, so maybe that's the pattern I want to repeat. So it's going to sew 3 horses, then I'm going to have to rehoop it and go again. So what you would do is you'd chalk out a line on your item. You would laser left, laser right, laser bullseye, and that'll left align it to this point here. So the needle is right over this, right? So then it sews this. Now you go and rehoop it, making sure this point is still in the hoop, right? So my next hooping, so if I turn on the hoop, oh, not that hoop. Let's try a bigger hoop. Let's say we're using that guy. All right, so let's say we're using that guy. What I would this is already sewn. I physically would want to rehoop it so that this point is still in the hoop that I can get to it. And then I've got my chalk line running here, right? And it can be crooked. It doesn't have to be straight, because what you're going to do is you're going to go laser left. You're going to come over, move the laser to right on top of that point, laser left. You're going to go down your chalk line. I go as far as possible, and I do a laser right on the chalk line and then laser bullseye. And now your design will rotate and pattern it, rearrange itself so that the start point is right there. Then if it's not quite perfect, you can nudge it around using the pantograph moving so that the needle's right over that point. So when you hit start, it'll sew the next 3. So that's how you would do it. All right. MK Buddy, does that help? Hopefully it does. It just depends on how you want to do it. All right. I attached this seal. I'm having problems with it puckering around the edge. Plus, it looks like an oval instead of a circle after embroidered. Suggestions. All right, so the ovaling is, that's not a word. Anyway, so push-pull is it's being caused by pull, right? So as the machine is sewing, right? Let's go over here and look at a circle. I'm going to turn that off. New. All right. In the direction that it's sewing, which that one looks like it's straight 90, or straight across, which is not really ideal, but you know, it is what it is. So 90, there we go. So on the keypad, I press What do you mean, Fruit Corbin? On the keypad, you press what to do what? I shall help. Anyway, while you're typing that, let me know. All right, so I've got a circle. When it goes to sew, what's happening is you'll end up, why it's looking at it as an oval is I exaggerate it, but because of pull. So what's happening in the direction that it's sewing, it's shrinking, right? So how do we prevent that? So, and well, one, why is it shrinking? As it goes across this way, the needle makes a needle penetration. Let's say here, it grows down into the bobbin, grabs the bobbin thread. It comes back up. Now the top thread is connected to the bobbin, and it moves over at high speed. So that thread is going through a hole, and it's being pulled in this direction, right? So that hole is trying to shift this way. So every time it's sewing this way, all those holes are trying to move in the direction that it's sewing, so that that whole side is shifting in, right? It's this whole edge is shifting this way. Well, when it comes back over here, now it's going to go the other way. So as it's sewing this way, again, all of this is going to naturally want to shift in, right? So net effect is it ends up pulling and narrowing up. How do we avoid that? One, make sure you have appropriate stabilizers. Cutaway is by far the way to go for pretty much anything and everything you can. There are reasons to to go to a tearaway, but if you can use cutaway, you should, because the whole game of quality embroidery is to getting good embroidery in is to make sure it all holds still for the embroidery to go in, right? So if I put a tearaway, that can kind of move because it rips. Cutaways are designed to not move and not tear apart, right? So it helps give you that extra stability. So when using good stabilizer, I personally like using a 3.1. All right, for Corbin, I'll come back to that in just a moment. All right, so I use a 3.1 ounce stabilizer, typically 2 layers, unless there's a reason not to, mainly because it's good and stable. Then you also want to make sure you don't accidentally overstretch your garment. If you overstretch your garment while hooping even a little, after it's done embroidering, what happens? It's been stretched, so now it wants to come back. So as it comes back in, you're going to get some puckering that way. All right. So stabilizer and hooping are very important. The other thing to help prevent puckering is then going to be in the digitizing, right? Prevent motion. So you've done decent stabilizer, you've hooped well, that's half of it. Now you want to make sure you've got a nice underlay that really secures all the edges and secures the fabric to the stabilizer so it can't move it's going to move, but it minimizes how much it can move around as it's doing that embroidery, right? So having a decent underlay on there, and yeah, that's kind of the main things I would look at, is making sure your underlay is appropriate, that, all else fails, you can go and add some pull compensation to it, right? So if you're doing everything and it's still just giving you this, okay, what do you do to avoid that? Well, I could. Now, I personally don't do this, but I have seen people do this. They will purposely distort things so that when it shrinks, it goes to where they want it to be. Like I said, that is not my preference. I think I've done that once to force, and it was specifically on a curve. I was embroidering on a hat, and because it's on a hat, you have to distort it to make it look like a circle. So that's probably, I think, the only time I've actually done that, but you can. I prefer just to use a little bit of offset. That's my preference rather than the pull by percent, but those are kind of your options there. Let me make sure I didn't. Yeah. So those are the tips I would suggest. Back to, all right. So Corbin, you asked about that alignment. So when I was talking about the laser alignment, there are in the manual, this thing right here, depending on how you want it to, when you're using laser alignment, how you want it to justify, that's the set of commands you put on the keypad, right? So if in the example I gave there with the horse and quilting, you're going from basically left justify every time. I'm going to keep on adding onto that. So I need it to left justify like this. So to do that, the commands are laser left. So you basically move to the first point, click laser left. You move somewhere wherever your second point is, and you do laser right. And then immediately after that, and it's got to be somewhat quick, you do laser bullseye. It is timed. It eventually will time out. I don't know what that is, but don't take forever, right? Laser bullseye, it'll rotate the design and left justify it in this case. I'll say I use this one the most, laser left, laser bullseye, because I just stick it whenever I'm doing alignments. That's where I most commonly am using it to center, justify along things, okay? But these are all the different options you have. Some of them flipping things upside down and those sorts of things. That's fun, but I'll say I never use these. Ever. I always just use these guys. All right. So Fruit Forest Corbin, did that help? All right, let me go back up. Make sure what else I missed. I digitized the logo with the dog in it. It had 8 shades of brown. I know if I select DesignShop colors, it'll match the thread chart, but can I get DesignShop to estimate colors based on the PNG file? You can. Yeah, so where's the keypad? I had a picture of the keypad at one point. Sorry, I'm scrolling looking for pictures of a keypad. There it is. So you hold that button down and then click on, so hold that down, and while it's being held down, you hit the left key. So laser left, they're together, let go. Then you move to the other point using your pantograph and arrows, right? Your hoop and arrows, move around to the next point, hold the laser key down, and then click on the right key, so those are depressed at the same time. You'll hear the machine go beep, beep, right? So laser left, beep, laser right, beep, and then laser bullseye. You won't hear anything, but you'll see it justify, or it'll rotate and reload the design on the computer screen. Yeah. So all of these commands are that laser plus left, laser plus right, laser bullseye. So yeah, these are, you hit both of these keys at the same time, and that's the command sequence. That's the cheat code. All right, so can we get DesignShop to estimate colors from a PNG? Yeah, you can. It does an okay job. It gets me close. I usually end up changing them all, but that's just me. Because I prefer... Boy, this week has been crazy. It's like I usually have my thread chart right here, but my desk is covered with stuff. I usually have a thread chart right here, and I use that to physically check all my threads. All right, so let's go grab an example. C drive, designs, graphics. I don't think I don't have a PNG, but I've got a BM. I got a BMP, same difference, right? Yes. So Corbin, all of these where it has laser plus bullseye, you have to hit them at the same time. So how I make sure they're depressed at the same time is I hit the laser key first and then the bullseye. Or the laser key, I'm holding it down, and then I push the right, the left, or the bullseye, depending on what sequence I am. But yes, these have to be held at the same time. I always just do this one first and then add that one into it. I mean, technically you can go and mash them both at the same time, but yeah. All right. So color matching. Rachel, I'll come to that in a sec. All right, so I can just tell this to auto-convert, right? All right, so I got it to auto-convert. Yeah, no worries. I hope that helps, Corbin. All right, so this gives me RGBs, right? So it basically pulls out the RGBs and says, all right, this is what colors I think this is. You can then come over here, right-click, go to Edit Color, and then tell it to match the chart. And it will, based on the RGBs, get you close. But you'll notice it picked that one. I like this one better, so I'm going to say pick that one. But yeah, automatically pre-selects when you tell it to match the color. So it gets you fairly close. I then usually just go change it. So, but that's just me. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty darn close. See those? The only one I changed was this one because I didn't like what it selected. So yeah, you can make it, where was that question? Someone typed it in. Oh, that was Kyle's question. Can you make it auto match? So yeah, so over here, right click, edit color, match chart. It will do all of them when you do it on one. If you don't want it to do it all, don't do it over here. Right click, properties, colors, and then tell it to match chart here. And you can change the charts too. Yeah, so I just tell it to match chart this way. Okay. All right, so let me scroll back up because we did that. I did that. When doing laser center, make sure you use emergency stop because with thicker material, the laser isn't always accurate. That's true. That's correct. So the laser is off on the right side of the machine, and when it comes down, because it's coming at an angle, if the material's thicker, rather than, it's calibrated to hit at the needle plate. Well, if your material is thicker, so it's calibrated to hit here, but your material is thicker, it's going to end up hitting over further off to the right. So you've just got to pay attention to that. And adjust accordingly if you're really relying on perfection for your laser alignment. So that Rachel typed in she's got a tip: always press the e-stop and actually double check the points. Not a bad idea. If you do it mid alignment where you're going to point 1 then point 2, it is timed, so be quick about it. So if you're going to 1 before you hit laser left, you drop it and check it. Laser left, that's when the time starts, right? So laser left, you move to point 2. If you e-stop and drop it, be quick about it. Don't sit there and dilly-dally because you need to do laser whatever and then laser bullseye pretty quick after that. All right. I think I'm just scrolling back to the questions that were typed in while live. Yeah. Rachel, you got some thank yous coming in. So let's see. Cool. All right, I got all the ones typed in. Let's come back to my PowerPoint. Okay, so I covered all that. Those were the questions that were sent in ahead of time. So that's all I had. What other questions might you have? I'm going to be out for the next 2 weeks. So I will be back the week of the 24th. What day is that? So I'll be back on the 26th. But the 12th and the 19th, I am unavailable. I'm going to be traveling with family. What other questions do you guys have? Let's see. I think all right. Oh, a comment just came in. Let's see. Thank you. Yes, it's gonna be great. I'm a little anxious. My nephew got into a massive accident last night in Tennessee, so I'm like waiting to see if I need to fly up there. But our vacation starts Monday, so I'm like, oh my goodness. But we shall see. It'll be fun regardless when we go out there. We're going to go out to see the Coliseum and all kinds of fun stuff, the Pantheon and Leaning Tower. Should be entertaining. All right, everyone. I guess I will talk to you guys next time. If you have questions, don't forget to submit them. Even while I'm out for a few weeks, you can always type them in here. Click on the form, submit them, and they'll be there when I come back to get your questions right up to the top of the list of things we cover. So yeah, send in your questions and we'll try to get them answered. And let us know if there's other things you want to learn about. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you in a few weeks. All right, bye, everyone.